What's going on, everybody? Shonen Express here, coming to you with another weekly Shonen Jump newsletter. I'm super excited to get into this. Again, we had a new series in the magazine, so why waste time? Let's get into it. So the cover this week, as well as the new series this week, was called I Tell C, with both just the letter I and the letter C there at the end. I was worried about this manga, I'll tell you. So I tried to look up the mangaka. I can't find anything on them. I don't know if they have. I don't think they have any other significant works that they've done so far. So, as far as I can tell, this manga is this mangaka's first foray into Weekly Shonen Jump, which is great. I love to see new talent coming to the magazine and all of that, so I'm very excited about that. I was worried about liking this series, but I'll save all of that. Let's get into it. So, I loved the setup with her, how they had the main girl there like shadowed out, and she like seemed to be like this stalker of these famous people. I really liked that. I thought it was cool that they had her shadowed out, and it definitely made her more ominous. It made her like scary and kind of, just generally frightening to see. I definitely was scared of her, and I definitely thought, oh my gosh, she's the murderer. This is, that's where we're headed. Which obviously was a huge change when we find out that she isn't, that she is just always, she has this stalker mentality. She's always in love with these convicts, and that's how she catches criminals. That was interesting, and I love how she turns out to be like this, like really they draw her very, very cute and girly, when they finally reveal her face and all of that. I thought that was interesting. So I definitely was fooled by it. They got me with that one. I thought she was definitely going to be, I thought this was going to be like a crime drama where the two detectives were hunting her the whole time, but no, they flipped the script and she's also a detective. So I didn't see that coming. But that aside, I also love the other two detectives, and I'll never forget their names. Their names are Sakon and Ukon. I'm gonna say Ukon. It could be Yukon, but I'll never forget their names because they are two villains in the Naruto franchise too, is Sakon and Yukon, and they're brothers. So it was interesting, and I would be interested to see. I don't think the parallels run any deeper than their names, but hey, it's an easy way to remember their names. They're Sakon and Yukon. But I really like these two detectives. I like that Ukon is kind of this straight man. He's doing things by the book, and then Sakon is like always overexcited. This was his first case. He was really into it. I really like that. I like the dynamic that these two bring to this manga, and I think that could really help this manga going forward. I will say the stuff about the girl, and what was her name? Aioi, I think? A-I-O-I. If you know how to pronounce that better, please leave it down in the comment section. I don't really know how to pronounce that. There's all vowels in that name really messes me up as an English speaker. So if you do know how, leave it down in the comment section. I'd love to be able to pronounce her name correctly. But she was like abducted, I guess, and then got Stockholm syndrome, and now she just falls in love with all of these criminals. I don't know how I feel about that yet. It's a kind of disturbing premise for me. I think, though, there have been other manga in the magazine that have started out on kind of a weirder note that I did end up liking. I think the most recent example being Undead Unluck started out with kind of a weird feel between Andy and Fuko, but has grown into, what I think is a very good manga and even a good love story. So, I'm skeptical. I have questions, but I'm not anywhere near saying I have problems with the premise. I think it's fine, but it does make me question. But what makes me hopeful about that, though, is that Sakon clearly has a problem with the way that Aioi is handling this situation, right? This chapter ends with Sakon going to her and saying, hey, I don't think the way you're doing things is right. And so I really think that might end up kind of creating this drama atmosphere for them, for this manga. And so I think that could be really good for this manga. I struggle to give this like a definitive, like definitely read it or stay away from it. I think you should read it, but I'm not nearly as invested in I Tell C as I am in the Elusive Samurai. So I definitely read it, give it a shot. Maybe it's something that you'll really, really like. And as it goes on, maybe I'll really, really love it and it'll get highlighted all the time. But as of right now, I'm kind of split in the middle with ITLC. But it was a good chapter. It was a good pilot chapter for sure. Good showing this week. So moving on, there wasn't anything that ended in the magazine. For once, there wasn't anything that ended. Nothing was on break. Everything was in there. And there were no special chapters. So really the only unusual thing I had to highlight this week was ITLC, which was new in the cover. But that means that I have 6 manga to highlight today. So I want to start, and we'll do this just kind of in order of the table of contents there. I want to start with My Hero Academia. So this week's chapter of My Hero Academia, I haven't highlighted this manga in several weeks, and it's unusual for me. I really like My Hero Academia. It's one of my favorites running right now, so it's unusual for me not to highlight it, but I had to do it this week. So Hawks is a very, as I understand it, a very fan-popular character, and we got his backstory. We see his abusive father and abused mother, throughout this chapter, and how Hawks had to live, kind of grew up as a little boy on the outskirts of this town, and just being, kind of screamed at and abused by his father, and not receiving any help, and clinging to this idea of heroes, but they were fictional for him. And then I love that there's one panel where his little Endeavor doll looks like it's walking as soon as they find out that his dad was arrested and put in jail, and he's free now. Heroes are real. Somebody caught his dad, and heroes are real. And so obviously, that leads to him having the rest of his life being kind of for the Hero Association and all of that. But I really like that his mom did get him the Endeavor doll. That was a cool little moment. And this chapter really just, I think it ends well in that it culminates in Hawks saying, Endeavor's in trouble. And Hawks saying he still believes in Endeavor even with all of the info out there. I think that, despite the public's perception of Endeavor and heroes in general, as we can see, there's one panel where they half the faces in this crowd are in awe of the heroes, and the other half are kind of downcast and skeptical. I think that the point of this chapter was that people are mixed up. People have different conflicting opinions and values about things, and I think that this chapter does a really good job of showing that, people are not all good or all bad. And so, even people that have done bad, look bad, can do good. They can turn it around. And I hope that that's where Endeavor's character arc is going, and where Hawks is going to help him get. So I like this chapter. I wanted to highlight it because I really liked it. But moving on, we've got to talk about One Piece, because this was an action chapter, a battle chapter this week, but oh my goodness, was it really, really cool. So first of all, I love that before I even get into it, I love the cover page. I love Lucci feeding pigeons in the park, and I like that Hattori, I believe that's his pigeon's name, Hattori, but I love how he looks like he's getting jealous of Lucci feeding these other pigeons. That was funny. But getting right into the chapter, everybody, Killer and Zoro included, they all avoided Kaido's big attack at the beginning, which I thought was cool. And then we get to see each of them do a move against Kaido. I think Luffy's was Kong Rifle. We got to see him use, and then Kid comes in with Slam Gibson, I think, and then obviously the Gamma Knife that Law has. And I love that Law's I'm not sure about the anatomy of a dragon. I've never seen dragon anatomy, but if I had to guess, the heart would be here, and uses Gamma Knife. And then Killer uses I think it was called Scyther Sonic. That move, that gives me all kinds of questions about Killer. Does Killer have a Devil Fruit? Because it definitely seems like whatever he did to Kaido right there was not just straight up blade work. I feel like that was a Devil Fruit thing that happened. So I'm really interested to see if we get any more info, if Killer does have a Devil Fruit, if that was some kind of weird blade technique that he was using that made it look like his blades were going into Kaido's body, phasing through him. I'm very interested in that. And then we get to see Zoro use Enma with full strength. I think he called it Dragon Sky Blast or Blaze or something. That thing that he tears off the horn of Onigashima, which was, it's insane, and he missed, and Kaido was legitimately worried that he would have been cut. There have been a lot of people talking about how, like, it's super impossible that Zoro would be able to cut Kaido, and that, I think, at this point, we can say that's not true. Zoro can cut Kaido. Zoro deserves to be on this battlefield just like all of the other members, and Killer included. Killer put in work this week. They all deserve to be on this battlefield. I really love that. And then obviously, you know, at the very end, Big Mom's lightning doesn't affect Luffy. He says it's because he's rubber, and then Kaido says, well, why isn't my fire blast breath working on you? And he says guts, and then hits him with Kong Gatling. That's amazing. This chapter was amazing. I have been a proponent of this is not the final battle for a long time, but I'm really getting skeptical, because this was an amazing combat chapter and a great way to do like a group fight scene here for this chapter. It was really good. It looked great. It was written very well. So I really love this chapter, and I had to highlight it. I just had to. But moving on, we will go to the Elusive Samurai. I'm going to highlight it again this week because I think it deserves it. So first of all, I love the little color page that it got. I thought that I love the traditional Japanese imagery that goes into this manga. I really think that this is interesting. And actually, one of you guys commented, I think on the last video, the last weekly newsletter video, that this is based off of the historical account of this era. So that's really cool. I didn't know that, and so that's cool to know. Historical manga are my favorite genre of manga by far. I've yet to read a historical manga that I didn't absolutely fall in love with. So that makes a lot of sense why I'm really into this manga. But I like the traditional kind of samurai things. I do want to mention the priest, and I will never be able to remember his name. I think it's like Yorishiro Shige, something like Yorishige, I don't know. But the priest, his eyes, like, there was a minute where it almost looked like he had like Sharingan in his eyes, like he had like little, like, you know, lowered irises or something. But anyway, I guess his eyes can like sort of see the future, so I really am looking forward to what that means in the future for this manga. What is this chapter was really weird for him. He got kind of weird towards the beginning, but I have a lot of questions about him and the way that he, you know, kind of interacts with this world. Also, I love the just absolute like visceral reaction to betrayal that Tokiyuki has about his uncle betraying and giving up, you know, Tokiyuki's brother to these people to try and gain standing. I just love the absolute, like, he's vomiting. He's so messed up because in his mind he can trust no one, and so he's learning to be on his own, to not trust anyone, even the companions that he has. And while that's sad, I really do think that that's an accurate picture of what's going on in his life right now. So he needs to be like that. And then I loved the demonization of the enemies. So like we get his uncle looking like the Oni, right? I love that like depiction. I think that that's super interesting. It's just really good. And then of course at the end of the chapter, his uncle is incredibly strong. I did not see that coming. I didn't think that was a thing, but his uncle like takes off the top part of his robe and slices that tree down, and then is coming for Tokiyuki. I didn't think his uncle would be like a physical fighter, and this actually gives me like even more hope for this manga, that this is going to be a battle shonen manga. I didn't think that at first, but I think we might be going in that direction. So I'm super interested in this manga going forward, and I had to highlight it this week just because I think the art's great and I really like it. So yeah, the next manga I want to highlight is Jujutsu Kaisen. This is another manga that I'm a huge fan of that I haven't highlighted in a couple weeks, and this was a great week to do it. I don't have a ton to say about this chapter, but it was definitely a turning point for the manga. So in this manga, one of the panels I really liked was we get to see what I assume are high-ranking officials both within the government and the Jujutsu Kaisen, or Jujutsu Sorcerer world, talking about the aftermath of what just went down what happened in the last arc, and how they're going to move forward, all of these things considered. So I thought that was interesting, and there are several things there that you might want to discuss at least, but it definitely was very interesting. But the main thrust of this chapter, and the main thing I want to convey in this newsletter, is the very end, where we get to see Okotsu is back, and not only is he back, but he's tasked with taking down Yuji Itadori and killing him. So there were like 5 rules that they mentioned, right? So one was Geto is sentenced to death. He was confirmed alive and sentenced to death, which we know is actually not true. It's not Geto. It's this other guy in Geto's body, but either way, I get it. Gojo was branded a traitor, and anyone releasing him from the prison realm is committing a crime by releasing him. And that makes a lot of sense, because Gojo has always had this like tense relationship with the higher-ups in the Jujutsu Sorcerer world, and so now that he's trapped, they're like, leave him in there. It's a crime to release him, which makes sense. The principal of Jujutsu High is sentenced to death as well, and Yuji Itadori is sentenced to death, and it is Okotsu, the guy who was in the prequel manga to Jujutsu Kaisen that we learned about there. It's his job to kill him. I'm super excited to see where this goes. I really think that this next arc is going to be very interesting, and it's going to loop back this character that, if you haven't read the prequel manga, you don't really know at all at this point. So I really like that. I like that it's tying things back together, and especially after Volume 0 was just released in English, I think it's a great time for that. So I definitely like this chapter, and I wanted to highlight it for those reasons. I felt like I definitely had to. And then the next manga I want to highlight is, no surprise, once again, I want to highlight Hardboiled Cop and Dolphin. I'm a huge fan of this manga, as you all know, because I highlight it all the time, especially now that this arc is kind of moving us in this more shonen battle type direction. I really, really like that. But, so there are several things I want to say. The first thing I want to say about this manga this week is, I love the stuff, the gangster stuff with, like, they're questioning Seira's, loyalty to the gang, since it was her subordinate that ended up taking down those, like, killer dolphin things on the shore. They're questioning her loyalty, and she's like, hey, all of my guys didn't have to join me. I made this decision by myself. And they're kind of going through that, and all of them making different decisions. I like to see what that scenario... What I hope it brings is, like, diversity within our villains. I hope our villains in this series are diverse, and they have different goals and wants and desires. And so I think that shows that, and that makes me very excited. And of course, we get to see the ultimate plan, which is to flood the whole world in this beautiful 2-page spread about, what that would look like. So we see the goal. We see what the goal for the villain organization is, and we can move forward. And then we get introduced to this giant catfish, catfish gangster guy, and the leader of the mobile marine investigation unit, right? She tells Samejima to take him out, and Dolphin is all like, Orpheus is all like, don't let him do that. Shark's not healed. But Samejima's like, I got this. I love the little banter they have where, like, Samejima's, like, just kind of going along with the catfish guy's crazy antics, like, his crazy sayings. I thought that was really funny. And then, obviously the catfish doesn't buy it, and they end up underwater and fighting. But then, the move that Samejima has mastered, part of that, like, water fighting style that they all know, that was super cool to look at. I loved the way, like, it almost formed like a Kamehameha hand thing, and then he claps, and just able to deal devastating damage to this giant opponent underwater when he's just a human. I really, really think that was really cool. I love that. I love every time that this feels more and more like a shonen battle manga. So I had to highlight Hardboiled Cop and Dolphin this week. And then moving on to the last thing I have to highlight, it's actually Magu-chan, God of Destruction. This is another manga that I don't highlight very often, but I felt like I had to highlight it here for several reasons. I really like this manga. This is one of the most heartwarming manga running in the magazine right now, in my opinion. If you want to feel good, Magu-chan, God of Destruction is a great manga for you to read. It's a very feel-good manga. And so this week was no different. We get introduced to yet another being god of, this universe that we see called Zonzige of Despair. And he's this little sea urchin, and I love looking at him. He's so fun to like see. He's a little sea urchin looking guy. But some of the things that really stood out to me in this chapter were Magu-chan's just immediate defense of Ruru, and like his he gets stabbed by the quill, the despair quill, and then he's about to attack and destroy Zonzige. His immediate defense of Ruru and how much their relationship has grown over the course of the series is really cool to see, and it's really heartwarming to see, because we've been through everything with these two characters, and Magu-chan learning about Ruru and learning about how to interact with human society. I really liked that. And I also liked that Yuika ended up being he ended up going with her because she's always positive. She doesn't have any pessimistic thoughts at all, so his powers don't really work on her. I love that little bit at the end where she keeps hitting what's his name, Izama or something like that, the Holy Knights kid on the head with him, and making him despair and then taking it away. I really thought that was pretty funny. So I liked this chapter this week, and I liked that slowly but surely all of the friend group is getting their own little god of destruction guy. Obviously, we have Ruru and Magu-chan and stuff like that, and Izuma and Yunaris, and Nabutaku is with Ren, but so obviously we've got a couple, but I love that Yuika now has this Zonzige, because she's not depressed. She can't get depressed. I really liked it. I thought it was nice and heartwarming again this week, so I wanted to highlight it, because I don't get a whole lot of chance to highlight Magu-chan, so I wanted to highlight it. But that's not all the great things in this magazine, guys. This week was a really good week. It was hard for me to cut down to the amount of manga that I want to highlight, but it was a great week for Weekly Shonen Jump, so definitely read everything in the magazine this week, but these are the ones that I just decided to highlight. So that's all I got for you guys this week. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you liked anything I had to say, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I bring you weekly newsletters every single week, as well as other videos, either a return to sender video or, some kind of review or some kind of special video every week too, or I'm trying to be consistent with that. I would be on the lookout for our Blood Oath return to sender video this week. I'm probably going to get that done and put that up now that our Blood Oath is over. I want to do a return to sender video on it to discuss that, so be on the lookout for that. As well as the Pillow Fort podcast. We just put up episode 9 of the Pillow Fort podcast, dealing with the Search for Minerva arc in the Promised Neverland, so definitely go check that episode out and watch all the Pillow Fort podcasts. We've done Hunter x Hunter before too, so you can go back and watch those videos as well if you'd like. I'd love to have you do that, and love to have you there with us. But yeah, so like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you have anything to say, leave it down in the comments section. I'd love to talk with you. But for now, this is Shonen Express signing off.